If you're working hard, but your life still feels stuck, this message is for you. Because the problem might not be your work ethic. The problem might be the game you're trapped inside. Most people are raised with the same promise. Work hard, be responsible, stay busy, do what you're told, and eventually life will reward you. But what if that promise was never designed to make you free? What if the system never needed you to fail? It only needed you to stay occupied. Occupied with bills, occupied with routines, occupied with stress, occupied with other people's priorities, occupied enough that you never stop long enough to ask the most dangerous question of all. Why am I still not moving forward? That is the busy trap. And once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. Look at the average day. The alarm goes off. You wake up already behind. You rush through the morning. You rush into traffic. You rush into work. Then it starts. Emails, calls, meetings, deadlines, problems, requests. Someone wants something from you. Then someone else does. Then another problem appears before you solve the first one. By the end of the day, you're drained. Not because you built something meaningful, not because you created leverage, not because you moved closer to freedom. You're drained because you spent the entire day reacting to the world, reacting to pressure, reacting to urgency, reacting to other people's agendas. Then you go home, you scroll, you watch something, you numb your mind because your brain has nothing left. And the next morning, it begins again. Alarm, rush, work, stress, repeat. Days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years. And then one day something terrifying happens. You look up and a decade is gone. 10 years, 10 years of movement, 10 years of effort, 10 years of stress. And yet your life is still sitting in almost the same place. That is the most dangerous part of the trap. It does not always destroy you quickly. It slowly consumes your life while making you feel productive. That is why so many people miss it. They confuse exhaustion with progress. They confuse stress with importance. They confuse motion with growth. But motion is not growth. Exhaustion is not achievement. And being overwhelmed is not the same thing as winning. You can spend your entire life sprinting and still die in the same financial position where you started. That is the lie. The system does not need to stop you from working hard. It only needs to make sure your hard work goes into things that never make you free. It only needs to keep you busy enough to stop you from thinking. And once a person stops thinking, they stop designing. And once they stop designing, they start drifting. And drift is where decades disappear. This is why the trap is so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a prison. It feels like normal life. It feels like adulthood. It feels like responsibility. It feels like doing the right thing. But the result is the same. You are moving all the time without ever building real power. You are sacrificing your life without creating real leverage. You are surviving without actually escaping anything. And deep down, most people already know it. That feeling in your chest, the one that hits late at night, the one that whispers, "This isn't it." That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is awareness. That feeling is the part of you that already knows something is wrong. Because no matter how many tasks you complete, no matter how many fires you put out, no matter how tired you feel at the end of the day, you can sense the truth. You are busy, but you are not free. And once a person sees that clearly, their entire worldview begins to crack. The system taught you how to follow schedules, how to meet deadlines, how to obey structure, how to seek approval. But it rarely taught you how to build ownership. It rarely taught you how to think in decades. It rarely taught you how to turn effort into assets. So people become incredibly skilled at surviving the week and completely untrained at building a future. That is why so many people look responsible on the outside while quietly feeling trapped. They did everything they were told. They worked, they sacrificed, they stayed busy, and still, something is missing. Not because they were broken, but because they were handed a system designed for maintenance, not freedom, designed for stability, not escape, designed to keep the machine running, not to help you rise above it. And if you never stop to question that, you can spend your whole life being useful to a system while becoming less useful to your own future. That is where this begins. Not with motivation, not with hype, with honesty, because before you can build a better life, you have to admit the current one may be engineered to keep you small. Here is the truth most people never hear. The trap is not laziness. Most people are not lazy at all. They wake up early, they stay late, they carry pressure, they solve problems, they do what they have to do. The trap is misdirected effort. It is spending your life pouring energy into things that do not compound, things that do not scale, things that do not build ownership, things that do not give you power back. That is what makes the busy trap so brutal. It takes hardworking people and sends their effort in circles. Think about how most people spend their day, reacting to emails, reacting to bills, reacting to emergencies, reacting to text messages, reacting to meetings, reacting to news, reacting to social media, reacting to whatever crisis is loudest in the moment. Their calendar is full, their day feels intense, their mind feels overloaded, but none of that guarantees movement toward freedom. This is system busy. System busy looks productive. System busy feels responsible. System busy wins approval, but system busy rarely creates leverage. It creates maintenance. It keeps you fed, stressed, and occupied. It teaches you how to carry weight, but not how to remove it. It teaches you how to endure pressure, but not how to escape dependency. And the longer a person lives like this, the more normal it feels. They start believing this is just what adult life is. Wake up, work, pay bills, recover, repeat. Try to enjoy the weekend, then start over. That pattern is so common that people stop questioning it. But common is not the same as correct. Normal is not the same as healthy, and popular is not the same as wise. The system survives because people mistake repetition for truth. But there is another layer to this trap: distraction. In the modern world, attention is one of the most valuable resources on earth, and there are entire industries built to steal it. Every app wants your focus, every platform wants your time, every notification wants a reaction. Every piece of outrage wants your emotion. Every scroll wants another minute of your life. And most people do not realize what is being taken from them. Not just time, clarity, depth, silence, reflection, the ability to think long enough to redesign a life. Because a distracted person may feel informed, but they are rarely in control. A distracted person may feel stimulated, but they are rarely strategic. A distracted person lives in constant reaction, and reaction is where powerful lives go to die. This is why the system loves noise. Noise keeps people from thinking. Noise keeps people emotional. Noise keeps people impulsive. Noise keeps people shallow. And shallow thinking creates weak decisions. Weak decisions create weak lives. Then people call it bad luck. But often it was never luck. It was conditioning. It was years of being pulled away from your own mind. Years of being taught to handle the urgent while ignoring the important. And that is one of the biggest reasons people stay broke. Not because they are stupid, not because they have no value, not because they are incapable, because they are trained to spend their best energy on things that keep the system functioning instead of things that build personal freedom. The system does not just want your labor, it wants your focus. Because wherever your focus goes, your life follows. If your focus is scattered, your future will be scattered. If your focus is rented out to distractions, your future will belong to distractions. If your focus is owned by other people's demands, you will spend your life building their priorities instead of your own. And this is where the deeper questions begin. Why does school teach obedience better than ownership? Why are people trained to follow instructions for years, yet never trained to understand money, sales, leverage, negotiation, or business? Why do so many people graduate prepared to apply for work, but completely unprepared to create opportunity? Why are the most powerful economic skills treated like optional side topics when they decide so much of real life? Once someone begins asking those questions, the illusion starts to crack because they begin to see the truth. The system rewards effort, but wealth rewards leverage. The system rewards obedience, but freedom rewards strategy. The system rewards reliability, but power rewards ownership. And once that realization hits, you can never look at a busy life the same way again. You start to see why so many good people feel exhausted, underpaid, and invisible. They were never taught to think like builders. They were taught to think like maintainers. And maintainers keep the system alive, while builders quietly escape it. Now look at the people who actually change their lives, not the loud ones selling fantasy, not the fake gurus promising miracles. The real builders, the people who slowly create power. They are not always less busy. In many cases, they work even harder. But their effort moves differently. Their effort compounds. That is the difference. Instead of spending all day reacting, they spend part of their day building skills, building systems, building assets, building relationships, building products, building a reputation, building distribution, building things that can keep producing long after one day of work is over. This is strategic busy. Strategic busy is not random motion. It is directed effort. It is pressure with a purpose. It is sacrifice connected to a long-term plan. And that is what most people never learn. The issue is not whether you are busy. The issue is what your busyness is producing. One kind of busy keeps you surviving. The other kind of busy builds leverage. And leverage changes everything. Without leverage, you are trapped trading hours for money. Every dollar costs another piece of your life. You stop working, the money stops. You get tired, the growth stops. You get distracted, the progress stops. That is fragile. That is exhausting. That is why so many hardworking people feel like they are carrying their whole life on their back. Because they are. They built nothing that can help carry the load. But leverage is different. Leverage means one action can keep producing value. A sales skill can pay for years. A business can create income without your constant presence. An audience can create opportunities you did not have before. An investment can grow while you sleep. A system can keep moving even when you step away. That is why leverage matters so much. It disconnects survival from constant personal sacrifice. It gives your effort memory. It allows work done once to keep echoing into the future. And once someone understands that, their standards change. They stop asking, what pays me this week? They start asking, what can I build that still matters in 5 years? They stop asking, what keeps me busy? They start asking, what creates freedom? They stop asking, what looks productive to other people? They start asking, what actually compounds? This is where lives begin to separate, because two people can work equally hard and end up in completely different futures. One person stays busy answering, fixing, rushing, and reacting. The other person carves out time to learn sales, to study psychology, to understand money, to create a side business, to build distribution, to invest consistently, to make relationships that open doors, to develop judgment, to think. That last one matters more than people realize, because thinking is where strategy begins, and strategy is what separates labor from leverage. The system trains people to move, but the builders learn when to pause, to analyze, to position, to say no, to protect attention, to protect energy, to protect time. Because time is not just hours. Time is direction. Time is identity. Time is your future in raw form. And this is why the trap is so expensive. It does not only steal money, it steals years. It steals mornings. It steals mental clarity. It steals the energy you should have used to build something of your own. That is why one of the hardest realizations in adult life is this. Some people are not failing because they lacked effort. They are failing because all their effort was consumed by maintenance. That is painful to admit, but it is also liberating, because if the problem was laziness, the answer would just be work harder. But if the problem is misdirected effort, then the answer is to redirect your life. That means learning how money really moves. That means understanding that sales is not manipulation, it is communication with consequences. That means understanding psychology, because all money flows through human decisions. That means understanding business, because ownership changes the math of your life. That means understanding distribution, because the best product in the world still loses if nobody sees it. That means understanding negotiation, because what you tolerate determines how you live. This is where the shift becomes real. You stop seeing freedom as luck. You start seeing it as design. You stop seeing wealth as mystery. You start seeing it as a result of skill, strategy, ownership, and long-term execution. And once that clicks, you can never fully go back to the old mindset again. Because once you understand leverage, the whole world stops looking random. You begin to see why some people stay tired forever and why others slowly build an exit. So what is the escape? It starts with a brutal kind of honesty. You have to stop glorifying exhaustion. You have to stop calling stress progress. You have to stop telling yourself that because you are tired, you must be winning. That lie has trapped too many people. The first shift is awareness. You have to see clearly where your energy is going. What are you building? What are you merely maintaining? What in your life compounds? What in your life only consumes? Those questions matter because once you measure your life through leverage instead of activity, everything changes. The second shift is attention. If you cannot control your focus, you cannot control your future. A distracted mind cannot build a sharp life. A mind owned by urgency cannot think long-term. A person who checks every notification, answers every demand, reacts to every emotional trigger, and gives away every spare minute will never have enough depth to create power. You have to take your attention back. Protect your mornings. Protect your thinking. Protect your quiet. Protect the part of the day where your best energy still exists. That is where strategic lives are built. The third shift is skill. Freedom is not built on wishful thinking. It is built on capability. If you want more money, understand the skills that move money. Sales, negotiation, communication, judgment, execution, business. If you can persuade, you can create opportunity. If you can solve a painful problem, you can get paid. If you can build trust, you can build income. If you can own the system instead of only working inside it, your life changes. The fourth shift is ownership. Ownership does not only mean owning a huge company, it means building something that belongs to you. A service, a brand, a client base, an audience, an investment account, a process, an asset, something that can keep working for you, something that gives your future support, something that makes your life less fragile. And make no mistake, this is not easy. It requires discipline when you would rather drift. It requires patience when you want immediate proof. It requires sacrifice when the people around you are choosing comfort. It requires saying no to things that feel normal. It requires becoming a little less available to chaos so you can become more available to your future. But this is the cost of escape. You cannot build a powerful life with a scattered mind. You cannot build freedom with random effort. You cannot build wealth while staying emotionally addicted to distraction. At some point, you have to decide, will your life be a reaction or a design? Will your effort keep feeding the machine, or will it begin building your exit? That is the question. Because the system does not need you to fail. It only needs you to stay distracted, stay comfortable, stay busy, stay too tired to think, stay too overwhelmed to plan, stay too emotionally drained to build. That is enough. That is all the trap needs. But once you see it clearly, something changes. You stop admiring busyness for its own sake. You stop respecting motion that produces nothing. You stop confusing pressure with value. You stop living just to keep up. And then a new question begins to guide your life. Not, what do I need to survive this week? But what can I build that will still matter 10 years from now? That is a dangerous question. Because once you ask it honestly, your schedule changes, your standards change, your habits change, your relationships change, your identity changes. You start cutting things, you start focusing, you start building. And slowly, one decision at a time, the trap loses power. You do not want another decade of blind motion. You do not want another year of reacting to everybody else's priorities. You do not want to die efficient, but unfree. You want direction. You want leverage. You want ownership. You want control. And that is where the real work begins, not with more random effort, with better design, with sharper thinking, with a longer time horizon, with disciplined attention, with skills that move money, with assets that support your future, with courage to step outside the pattern everybody else calls normal. That is how people escape. Not instantly, not magically, strategically. And if you found value in this, share it with someone who still thinks in weeks, because the people who keep thinking in weeks will keep living in reaction. And if you want more long-term strategy like this, subscribe to the channel. This channel is about strategic realism, how power, leverage, and long-term thinking actually shape the real world.